All right, afternoon, guys. Hope you all are doing well. Just to go over the timeline, since we missed 1 week previous, I'm gonna change this open lab to the hair modeling and grooming, and then it'll be we'll go over your finals on the 1st, so the following week, and that, and if you have any other projects that you want me to relook at, we can look at that on that day again, and then the following week on the 8th is when all the assignments will be due, and I will be sending out a Excel sheet. And what we'll be doing is you'll be signing up for a 15-minute section, and then we'll just have a one-on-one chat, and we'll figure out your grade on that date. Does anyone have any questions about the next few weeks?
I have a quick question.
Yep.
Because there's no Canvas page, would you be able to send out just like a sheet that lists everything that's technically due on the 8th?
Yes, I can do that at the end of the class. But it's all it is the one Sketchfab. I want the 10 simple objects and 2 a little bit more complex objects, and then you'll just have to then also just give me the I think 1 second interior render and a single render of your self-portrait. That makes sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Right, great. So if no one else has any questions, what we do is I can look at your progress of your character, and if you don't have any questions or want me to go over anything from the previous few weeks, I'll be going over the materials that I want you to have for this character and set up a quick render. And then the following week, we'll be going over how to add hair to your character. Sounds like a plan? Great. So does anyone have any progress so far that you want me to look at? So this is really good. One small thing. I know this is just right here. You don't have to change this. No, this is fine. I can figure out what it looks like. Smooth. You don't have to do this for the next redo this part, but instead of having it go across like this, you could just kind of continue the loop. So by deleting, I think, this edge right here and bringing this edge right here and continuing this edge loop right here along right here, you would be able to create the like loop around without having this kind of like box shape. It's fine. It's just that's just something that I just saw from like out of like. But besides that, the edge loops look good. The texture looks good. One thing I could see is when you when you smooth this, you'll have like a separation maybe right here. If you look at my face on the inside, I kind of like just extend like the eyelid like down out a little bit more, kind of fans out. You can kind of accentuate it a little bit more too.
Oh boy.
So just like you can extend it out a little bit more to like have it so that your like eyelid kind of hugs your eyeball a little bit more and doesn't like it looks like it's like a flap instead of just kind of like something that goes and will stop. Yeah, it looks good because it doesn't like you don't have any highlights on it, so it's all flat, and but you can get the like the texture of your skin. So I think this is looking pretty good. One thing might be like this might be a little too pointy back here. Normally. Like I would expect your head to be something along like what you have like here, like this section right here most likely is just like from your like your hair bunched up. I assume your head doesn't go out like that. I might be wrong, but take another look at that. Do you have any other questions? Oh, how should... I think you're good at this point. Like, I think you're all caught up with your face. Cool. Does anyone else have any questions or want me to look at their project? All right, if not, let's go into the lecture. So, at this point, you have modeled out your face. UV'd it, textured it, and now it's a good point to start setting up the materials. And what's up? Catherine, what's the matter? Well, you don't have to have your face complete. Like it just the project is due in a few weeks, so you'll just have to like step up the production. It's done. It's due on the 8th. You can do more, but like each week. But like if you kept up with the amount of work, you wouldn't have felt overwhelmed. It's up to you. If you feel like you work better, like doing it all a little bit quicker, it's perfectly fine. But anyway, so far we have modeled the face, UV'd it, and textured it, and now we're going to set up our render. So what we want to do is we're going to set up a like a studio light setup, 3-point lights, and I'll make a backdrop. So instead of just rendering out in the void, what we can do is create a nice backdrop by creating a plane, like so. Um, 10 by 10 is fine. We can then go and scale it up. A bit. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go into Form, Nonlinear, and Bend. And we're going to create a bend deformer. And you'll see that when we create the deformer, this line appears. And this is the bend deformer. And if you click on it and see the inputs and it says bend 1, it has a few attributes to it. Envelope means it's like turning it on and off. So it goes from 1 to 0. 0 means it has no influence on the mesh. 1, it means it has influence on the mesh. And then curvature, this is how much it's going to be bending. So if we type 90 degrees, it will bend 90 degrees. But it might not be bending for you right now, and it's because it's trying to bend in this direction. So all we have to do is select the handle and rotate it 90 degrees and 90 degrees. So it's now bending the plane. So I only wanted to bend one of the sides. So if we go back into this bend, there's low bound and high bound. Low bound means it's going to bend this part, and high bound means it's going to bend this part. So it's at -1 and 1. So if we change low bound to 0, it might be high bound for you. It just depends on the orientation you're moving it. You can see that stops bending at a certain degree. So you can also move this handle around, and you can see that it'll like change where it's going to start and stop the bend. So I'm going to do something about this, and once I'm happy with what I like, what I want this this plane to be bent, I'll go and select the mesh and then go and delete the history. And when you delete the history, you can easily move this around and that bend deformer is deleted. If you don't delete the history and you move this, it's not going to keep the right shape. It's going to be like all like wonky. It's going to still have the effect of the bend controller. So when we delete the history, it kind of locks in place, and now I can kind of like readjust this again to something maybe a little bit better, something a little bit more that I want. I want a nice like bend to it, but not like real close to the head, something that gets the fall off. I might go and select like the top bit and just like extrude it out so I have a little bit more above and below. So this is now, and I can push 3 to smooth it out. So now this is my backdrop. It's a nice gradient backdrop. I'll go and create a camera. So create camera, name the camera render camera. Press the space bar, go to the 4 views. I can go to one of the views. Panels, perspective, render camera, and now I'm looking through this camera. I'm going to press 6, so you can see it. I'll go and turn on the render gauge so I can see how I'm rendering it out. Since we're going to be rendering out our face, instead of like setting up our camera to be landscape and have a lot of dead space right here and here, we can go and switch it to portrait. So we can go into the render settings, switch it up so it's a different ratio. We can do like 1920 by 1080. This might be a little like tight, so I might want to go and just increase the width a little bit to maybe like 1200. Maybe 14, something nice. And then we can kind of start and adjust how we want to like render our face. Once we figure out a good spot that we want, we can go and back into the render settings, click maintain width height ratio, and then we can adjust the width and height again to like something like 200. And to change the ratio. So now when we start practicing our renders or setting up our renders just to test it out, we're not rendering out a full object, and then we can easily just readjust it back to 1920 and it has the same ratio. So now I switch back to my normal perspective so I can start adding lights. Here's our render camera. We don't have to touch that. So before we start anything, I'm going to make sure that my Arnold render is installed. So I'll go to Windows, settings and preference, plugin manager, and type in A2 M2A. M2A. So this is Maya to Arnold. It's loaded and auto-loaded, so it's all good. You can double check by going to the render settings, and instead of using instead of using Maya software, you want Arnold renderer. So now we're going to be rendering with our Arnold, and we want to now create a skin material for our face. And if you've looked at there's a lot of things that go along in with our face, and to make it look realistic, we want to use something called a subsurface scattering. And what subsurface scattering is it's a material that changes the color as the light goes into the object. So if you look at your ears or your hands, they kind of have a different kind of color. Even your skin, you might be able to see it's one color, but underneath you might see veins or just more of a red hue to it. And this material kind of gives it that skin feel compared to just a normal Lambert, which kind of looks just generic 3D. So what we will be using is we go into our Hypershade and type in AI standard surface. We can call this skin material. And the easiest thing to do is just go to presets and choose skin and replace. And then what it's going to do, it's going to go and populate a bunch of preset attributes that kind of work pretty well. But the main thing what we're going to look at is under base specular transmission, and we're going to look at this subsurface tab. And this is the subsurface materials and kind of colors that we will be playing around with. Mainly this weight and scale value. So I'm going to just go and assign the skin material to my face. And right here in this subsurface color, I'm going to go and click the checker and apply the material that I already made for my face. I might want to actually do a few things real quick. Before we do that, we're just gonna use the default information without applying a texture. We're gonna go to create lights, and I'll create a spotlight. And what we want to do is we want to do just a normal studio 3-point lighting. So if you Google 3-point lighting, this is the most like basic way to shoot heads. So you can see right here, there's 3 lights. You have a key light, a fill light, and a back limb light. And what these do is your key light is going to be your main light. It's going to light like 70% of your face. So you can see that this only has a single light going, and it's filling up the left side of this person's face. The right side is filled with shadow, and you can see that like his neck is really dark, and it's not well lit. And then the rim light is a kind of like a backlight right here, and what it's going to do is it's going to light the back part of your head and mainly catch these kind of like shadow, like it'll just add some light right around the rim of your head, and it kind of makes your head kind of pop a little bit. And then the fill light is just going to fill in all of the other light, and it's not going to be the most bright light. It's just going to kind of like make sure that you're not in darkness. So what we'll do is we'll go and create our light. We can call this like Spotlight 1 or our key light. Go into Attribute Editor, scroll down to Arnold, and then I'll just expose it, put the exposure up to 11, and see what happens. Go to Arnold, Render, and switch to Render Camera Setup. Increase the cone angle so it's filling up more of the scene. I want this to be a lot hotter, so I'll change this to like 14. 14's way too much. Go down to 12. 12 isn't enough again. Maybe 13. 13's a bit. Let's go to 12.5. That's not too bad. I'll go in the radius, increase the radius of my shadow. change the perma angle and drop off a little bit. Might be able to change this to 13, a little bit more exposed. Create a new light. So this is going to be my rim light. So the rim light is normally across the composition of the key light. I kind of like doing it a little bit of a top down, a tidbit more than this light right here. This one I kind of do it like pretty much parallel with the face. This one I kind of want to get this like rim right around here ish. So I'm going to do a little bit higher up and coming down a tidbit. And normally the rim light is as strong as the key light or maybe a little bit stronger. So I'll first start off with 13 and see what that looks like. So I'll turn Arnold back on. So I'm getting this like rim light around here. So that's that goal. And now what I want to do is create the fill light. And this one is going to be on the other side, like, of the 45. So, like, let's say this is the straight line. It's going to be on this side. And it's not going to be as bright as the other two. The idea of the fill light is just to fill in this darkness. Okay, so once you get this, now we have to get rid of all of this noise in our scene. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go and increase the samples just by a little bit. So I'm going to take a snapshot. Fuck. This is one of the reasons why you should have autosave on and not be working on a autosave without saving, because Maya will crash sometimes and you'll have to redo your work. So making plane, rotating the curve, deleting the history. Create a camera, render camera. Put your key light. Change the cone angle to be something bigger. Arnold. Exposure to 12. Arnold's render. Rim light. fill light. Don't forget to increase the radius of their shadows so they have a nice fall off. We want them to be soft shadows. So this is just our lights with the normal Lambert shader. So it looks fine, but there's no like depth, like change of color, like based off of like how thin our body parts are. So like if you take a light and you kind of shine it behind your ear, light's going to pass through it. Like our skin is very translucent. It's kind of like, it's not the same thing as a candle, but it has that kind of like candle-esque effect to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into the Hypershade, type in AI standard, name it skin material. Presets, skin, replace. And I just applied this to it. So now our face is kind of blown out now. And the issue is this skin material this subsurface has this weight and scale to it, so it doesn't really exactly know how big your object is to have this color like transfer through well. So there's this scale value. So you can see that if I go and take a snapshot of this. Fuck. So now when we go into our subsurface tab, there's a scale value. So you can see that at 1, it looks like this. But if I reduce this to 0.5, you can see that like slightly things are going to be changing around with the material. So I'm going to go even further down to 0.1. So you can see that like the light is kind of like this in this image, the light is going through a significant amount. It's going through a little bit less, and now it's getting a little bit more skin like feeling. So I might need to change these values. Let's relook at the difference in the weight. So the scale, sorry, going back to 1, you can see that like the light completely goes through this object significantly. It feels very like there's not much detail to it, and as I reduce it down to 0.1, you're getting more defined features, but you're still getting this like kind of light coming through over here. I'll increase the samples of the light. we have to go into this render settings and Arnold render, and right here in SSS, if we increase that, that will help significantly increase the subsurface, values, so it'll be a little bit more detailed and less noisy. You can see that we're getting that like red hue in like these thinner parts of the head. For me, I think this 0.75 might be a little too small. So the goal is just to try and get make it feel more organic in the nature. You can change these. So as I change this, so like I can change the top color. So that's like the top color of our skin. So if we go and choose file for this subsurface color equals, and you can see right here, like it's getting that undercolor through. So I'm going to go and choose that color underneath that I wanted. So that's the outside color. And then like this radius underneath, this is like kind of like whatever like tone is kind of underneath your skin. So normally it's this like reddish color, but you can see that like as we like slide it through the color range, you're getting a different hue. So like not everyone's undercolor is the exact same. And that's where you can start like messing around a little bit more to get that organic-esque like natural skin feel to your to your skin. So for my character, I find it's still a little shiny. So what I can do is go back into the skin material and specular. This is where you can start messing around with some of these default settings. So you can see as I go lower in the roughness, I'm getting more shiny. And weight is another value that you can kind of mess around with. It just kind of like turning on and off how much subsurface you want your character to have. So you can see that 0. It's not using any of this undercolor. It's just using like the flat, like generic color. So normally I would keep it at 1, but if it's like, if you feel it's way too like subsurfacey, you can like reduce that color, like that value, a tiny bit. So are you having questions about that so far? Okay, so now we're going to go into the eyes. So last week I mentioned the eyes consist of 3 objects: the outside, the iris, and this back part. So it's very simple what we have to do. Right here, this back part, all we have to do is go and create this surface shader. It's black and it doesn't hold any like value. It's just a flat one color to it, and we just need it to be black. Now this torus right here, we're going to project the UVs just straight on it, so it looks like a little donut right here for the iris. And we'll go and find whatever like eye color that you have. Make a square. And we're going to get the color of our eye as a texture. File save as. Go and choose AI standard, surface shader. In the color, choose file. So now you can see that you have the color right here in this torus. And now we're going to look at this right here. And we can go and select this. And this part right here, we want it to be transparent. We want it to be see-through. So what I'm going to do is create another AI standard surface material. And apply it to the eye. And we can go and choose something like real reflective, like chrome. Let's try chrome for it now. And I want to go and create a gradient ramp. So I typed in ramp and it creates this node right here. And it's, if you look at it, right here, it goes from black to white. And if you look up right here, it's white to black from right there. So my plan is to go and create a white to black mask and have the black be this part to mask out that section. So out in alpha, I will go and find opacity. So I'll drag out color to opacity on this. Maybe chrome's not right. I want choose car paint and choose the color to be white. So now you can see that we have our eye, and now it's somewhat transparent right there, and we can adjust this transparency to match a little bit better with where the iris kind of comes through. So if we go and select the ramp, we can kind of adjust this again. So you can see that as I go a little closer, it's getting a little bit whiter. So I want to kind of move this back in the black a little bit more. So I'm getting a little bit more. So we don't want our iris to be reflective. So what I did was, it used to be like this. So what I did was I went into the roughness of this AI standard material, and I just brought it down so it became not shiny at all. We just want the exterior part of the eyeball to be the shiny part. And another thing that we can do is for the skin is to go and add a little like bump map. So similar to all the objects in our interior render, we can do like look for like a skin bump map. So you can see that there's like just tiny little like speckles and whatnot. So one thing that you can do is find another texture, or you can go and just type in noise. And this is just a noise like effect, and you can go and kind of just like mess around with the settings to get some sort of like noisy like pattern to it. And then with our skin material, right here in geometry, we can go to bump map and add that noise to it. So it's normal camera right down here. Make sure you're using bump, and then you can like affect how much this bump is, like we discussed in previous So as you go, you can start messing around with some of these settings to kind of spot in on how it looks in the render to yourself. But I would try and add some sort of like noise to your skin, little bumps. To give it just that kind of like a little bit of texture to it. And I need you to use the subsurface scatter material for your face. But if no one has any questions, that's it for tonight. And next week we'll be going over hair. Does anyone have any questions about what we went over today? All right. If not, I will see you all next week.